this webinar, and I will be posting it on the TAR website for you to view later. If you are so inclined. This is going to be our last commercial webinar for the year. We will start up our commercial webinar series again in March. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up, including our winter meeting here in Austin from February 8th through 11th or 12th. I can't remember exactly. Commercial events will all be on February 8th. If you are interested, we hope you will come and join us. We're doing some more things this year. We've got some interesting speakers. Registration will open soon, and you'll be able to go online via the TAR website and sign up. I think that's really all I need to tell you guys today. So I am going to hand it over to Nathan. And Nathan, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you again for letting me put on a little show today. Can y'all hear me okay? Is this working all right?
Let's go. I'll go back to our little...
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to... Hang on. Let me put everybody's hands down. All right. Go ahead, Nathan. Try that again.
Test. Just want to see if y'all can hear me all right.
You guys can hear Nathan. Please raise your hands. All right. Hands are going up like crazy. All right, great. We'll get
started. Cool. Well, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and kind of walk through a little bit of RPR Commercial. So what I wanted to do with y'all is kind of just highlight the platform in general through a couple of slides. And then we will actually jump into the platform itself and run through a couple of kind of general examples just to give you an idea of some of the stuff you can do in there. You know, ultimately, what I hope you get out of this is just kind of a complete understanding of what's available to you, and then get some ideas on how you might utilize this system in kind of your own day-to-day workflows and that sort of thing. So, you know, feel free if you want, you can jot down my email address. It's just nathang@narrpr.com. I always love, you know, hearing from folks, learning what you like, what you don't like, and how we might be able to improve this platform. So to start off with, you know, RPR is a wholly owned subsidiary of the National Association of Realtors. And what that really means is that this is a benefit of realtor membership. So a part of your NAR dues is what goes towards funding our budget. And with that, everything that we build, there's no cost for a realtor member to get access to. So once you become a realtor member, you have access to all of the stuff on residential, all the stuff on commercial, all the broker tools, and so forth. So once you have access, you just create your account, and then you can, you know, dive into the system, see what's available to you, what you like, what you don't like, and that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of a neat thing to know that, you know, all of this has been built to kind of give realtors a little bit more information, or a lot more information than the public is going to have access to, putting you back in the forefront of that knowledge space. So that's what we're kind of here to do from an NAR benefit perspective. You know, from a technology standpoint, what we're really looking for is to build out a, you know, top-tier property-centric database. And what we do is we basically wrap tons and tons of property information, community information around our public records feeds, and you'll kind of see how all that works. But it's a way to kind of understand both the buildings and the communities that surround them, so that, you know, you and your clients are, you know, looking for properties in the right areas, and also putting businesses and communities that need them. Ultimately, what we want to do kind of for each individual realtor is just save you all a little bit of time, maybe save you some money on some other technology expenses that you're currently paying for, and just create some efficiencies in your day-to-day life. So one of the ways that we help create some of those efficiencies is, you know, we are really just a giant data consolidator. So we go out there and we make partnerships with data companies nationwide, typically, for things like the public records I mentioned earlier, but we also pull in economics, demographics, traffic counts, business points of interest. We partner with MLSs and CIEs. We have tapestry segments and so forth, all in kind of a one-stop shop within the RPR platform. So you're not having to go between multiple websites and paying for data or any of that stuff. It's hopefully mostly going to be within RPR for you right off the bat. As I mentioned, you know, the public record database is pretty much where we kind of built everything off of, or what we at least tie everything to. And so across both residential and commercial, there's over 170 million parcels. And as you see, with that comes tons of default records, tax records, owner names, that kind of stuff. Out of that 170 million, I believe it's at about 42 million of those are going to be commercial properties. So you have access to every one of those public records across the country. And then from there, what we do is we make partnerships with various listing sites, I guess you would say. So that's, our typical association run or owned MLSs and commercial information exchanges. So that's where we typically get most of our listing data. So, as a member of a local board within Texas, you probably utilize some of the MLSs. There's also a couple of y'all who are lucky enough to be around catalyst markets. And most of those we are either partnered with or working on partnerships with. So you'll kind of see how that ties in. Members get to choose, what access other realtors get. So we don't tell people what to do with their data. Basically, the owners of the operators of the CIE or the MLS can say, hey, we only want our subscribers to see it, and that's how that will work for that data feed. Or if they are open to sharing with all realtors, they can also set it up that way as well. So that's totally up to the owners of that data. So that's why you'll see sometimes, like if you go down into like Florida is a good example, you're going to see a lot of on-market information because most of those feeds are open to everybody, all realtors. Same thing with anything that comes from totalcommercial.com, which is a third-party provider. All of their feeds come into RPR and available to all realtor members. So that's kind of how the on-market data comes in here. Some of y'all might be wondering if CoStar or LoopNet are sending us, listing data, and unfortunately, they are not. So hopefully one day there's a partnership somewhere, some way, somehow with them. But as of right now, they're not really willing to kind of have those conversations. So that's the on-market stuff. Next up, what we do is we kind of start building out the community descriptions. And our greatest partnership for that is going to be Esri. A lot of y'all are probably familiar with Esri, just from doing commercial real estate. Also, if you are a CCIM member, the Site to Do Business platform that is utilized by CCIMers is also run off of Esri's data. So all that information that's in CCIM, Site to Do Business, all that information that you can see these folks across the country, across the world are utilizing for things like site selection, all of that's inside of RPR and available to you. And we'll talk a lot more about that. And there's been some fun things that we've done recently on how we collect and roll up that data, which you'll get to see here in just a bit. We also map tons of information. So over here on the left, this is an example of our traffic counts. Over here on the right, this is an example of our business points of interest. Again, this is all nationwide information, so you can go through the system and kind of see what's available by clicking on restaurants and looking at amenities, or looking at different manufacturing companies and see if there's partnerships that can be done. If you need an annotizer or something like that to be close by, you can definitely do site selections around those. So lots of great stuff you can do with the business points of interest and the traffic counts. We also have site selection tools. So we're going to utilize this little guy here on the live show. That's our attribute-based site selection tool. And what it does is, as long as you know the type of people or the economic conditions that you want to be around, the system will use the Esri data and some of the other information sources that we have, and it will kind of show you where those people live. So in this example, we're looking at San Francisco, pretty big area. You don't need to be looking at all these areas if your customer base or renter base or employee base doesn't kind of live there. So this will allow you to kind of focus in on specific zip codes, specific neighborhoods, and so forth for your property searches. You can also use our what are called retail gap analysis site selection tools. Those will help you identify where the best place for a business is based on, what type of business it is, and looks at the competitive nature of the community around it. And you can also look at, what the best business is for a specific location as well by looking again at, how competitive certain retail sectors are. So those are the three different site selection tools. Next up, we have the investment analysis tool. This has actually been built out by a third-party company called Real Estate Financial Modeling, or REFM. The platform itself is called Valuate. It will do, your typical 2 to 10 year hold analysis and produce, an unlevered and a levered internal rate of return, sales cap rates, entry point, cap rate, etc. But it'll also do things like flip analysis. So if there are any people doing residential flips, you can do that. And then there is also a multifamily rent roll analysis. So you can get a little bit deeper into how each unit is performing on a multifamily analysis. And then also there's the ability to do what are called back of the envelope analysis or calculators, where you can actually look at a plot of land and say, all right, here's the density allowance or the FAR base. Here are the timelines, the use of funds that are pretty typical for my community, my area. Here's what I think the incomes and the expenses might be. And then it'll kind of show you what this stabilized NOI, yield on cost, is, which is kind of your indicator as to whether or not it's worth pursuing the project. So it's a great kind of, first step to see if an idea or a development concept, pencils out, whether it's worth, starting to bring in engineers and city planners and that sort of stuff and actually spend some hard cash on a project. Of course, we do tons of reports. You'll see just about all of them here today. We do have a mobile app for you, so if you haven't already downloaded it, I would encourage you to do so. Again, there's no cost for the mobile application. And the way you use it, just like on the website, it's one app, and you choose how you want to utilize it. So up here, there's a little settings cog. You click on that, and that's where you can say, all right, I'm going to use this as a residential practitioner, or I'm going to use this as a commercial practitioner. And the good thing is, if you only focus on commercial, once you toggle to commercial that first time, it will remember your last setting, and it will just go ahead and automatically start you on the commercial side. And basically everything that we're going to go over today is available in the app. I mean, you can even do an investment analysis from there. The only things that are going to be missing at this point in time are the POIs, the business points, that kind of stuff. And then also there aren't the site selection tools, but you can run, the trade area report, which has the retail gap analysis within that. Broker tools, just really quickly, I want to go over these because in my mind, if the only thing that you utilize the broker tool set for is company branding, it's totally worth it. So what company branding will allow you to do on the commercial side is brand all of the reports that are generated in RPR with your logo. It will brand the website with your logo. So basically what you are going to be able to do with the broker service tools is make the RPR platform appear to be something that, your company developed, spent millions and millions of dollars on, and that kind of good stuff. So if for nothing else, I'd encourage y'all to access the broker tools from there. And at the end of today's presentation, if there's anybody that wants to kind of hang around and see where to get access to those tools, I'd be happy to kind of hang out after the Q&A or during the Q&A and kind of show y'all where to get started with that. And then lastly, I always like to point this out, we're about to get into a pretty dense topic here. Lots of things you can do within RPR. You might get a little overwhelmed. I don't know. But don't worry about it. Honestly, there's tons of training online. Like we said at the beginning of this, this specific presentation is going to be recorded, so you can go back and watch things. I just would highly encourage you just to kind of, if this is your first time looking at the system, just take some notes. You don't need to kind of, dive into things too deeply, and just, write down what you like, what you think might be interesting to pursue. And then just understand that on our blog page, which is blog.narrpr.com, there's tons of training, tons of articles, help desk, all that kind of fun stuff that will help you kind of get around and get to understand some of those processes and some of the data that you're interested in. So with that, assuming there aren't any questions at this point in time, I thought we might just jump into the platform here and run a couple of examples. So before we do that, though, I do want to kind of go over the homepage for you just a little bit.
Actually, sorry, Nathan, I think I forgot to tell everybody how to ask questions at the beginning here, didn't I? Just so everybody remembers, in case, or you didn't know, if you mouse over the screen that you're using to watch this webinar on, there will be a little Q&A icon that appears down at the bottom of the screen. And if you click on that, it'll bring up a window into which you can type questions. I'm going to keep track of those. So if you have questions for Nathan while he's delivering this webinar, feel free to type them in there and I will make sure he hears them. Okay, sorry, take it away.
Awesome, perfect, thank you. All right, so the homepage of RPR, this hopefully looks somewhat familiar to y'all. Nothing too crazy here. Basically, up here at the top, welcome, Nathan. This will have hopefully your name there. Maybe it'll say Nathan as well. But that's where you can jump in there and you can add your personal details. You can add, your phone numbers. You can add assistants to work as you, that kind of stuff. If you're ever curious how to get between residential and commercial, if you're on commercial, this will take you to residential. And if you're on residential, you click commercial and it'll take you to commercial. So pretty easy peasy there. As you can see down here, there are 3 main ways to get into the platform. You have your go-to search, which we'll go over. There's nothing crazy about the search process. There's a couple of little nuances since we do have public record data. We do allow you to just do for sale searches if you don't want to go through all the public record data that's available in your market. But then we have this area here. This is our go-to analysis section, or what I like to call our site selection toolbox. This is where that attribute base and the 2 retail gap analysis solutions are going to be available to you. And then over here we have our thematic maps, which is just a more visualized way to start your searches. You can put on heat map layers like percent of population that are seniors, and kind of dive into a property search from there as well.
Hey.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question here. Someone asks, can you add listings, rental and pocket/private listings?
Yeah, so there is no what's called a broker load part of RPR. So all of our listings come from either MLS's, CIEs, or third-party platforms like totalcommercial.com. So unfortunately, you have to load your listings into an MLS, or a great alternative. I know totalcommercial.com is starting to grow some population use in Texas, so that might be an option for you as well.
Great. And we do have some new CIEs here in Texas as well. So
a lot of new CIEs. So yeah, hopefully you're in one of those markets. And I know that we're in conversations with Houston for their Catalyst product, and we're also talking to a couple of the other new vendors out there as well. So Catalyst is a great system for us. So if y'all have not checked them out, they're a really great platform. Any other questions there? Okay.
Not right now, no.
All right, cool. All right, so down here, as we continue down the page, recent properties, recent searches, recent reports. Basically, we try to track your most recent behaviors so that you can easily jump back into a property, jump back into a search, or pull up a report without having to go through the process of rerunning it. Some advertising. 2 things down here that I want to point out. First of all, the blog page. If you want to go to the blog page and watch some of our training, or read some of the articles that we've recently put out, you can definitely do that. This is also where you can go to the broker owner section and start the process of the branding and that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. It's a great little resource to kind of see what we're up to. Most important thing though, down here, if you see this little 877 number, we do have 24/7, 365 customer support. So, if on Turkey Day you're tired of the football games and you're trying to do a little work for some reason, you can definitely, keep in mind that there's going to be somebody to help you out within RPR. Now, I will say, holidays and, midnight sessions, they're kind of the go squad there. So you might not have, all of the answers, but they will definitely get your questions in queue, and they can definitely help you out with some of the easier things. But they're really, really great about what they do. They're employed by RPR. They are based in Omaha. And they're actually tested on the system. So they're very, very knowledgeable about what's available to you, and they can really help you out. And then there's also this live chat option here also, so you can utilize that. I actually like using the live chat more than anything else, especially if I have an enhancement idea. I can type in the live chat what I'd like to see added to the system, just to kind of get it off of my plate really quickly and easily. And they'll put that into the queue. The same queue that you would utilize as far as requesting enhancements is the one that I use as well. So we keep it all together there. So just keep in mind, there's always going to be somebody here to kind of help you out as you're going through the platform the first couple of times. So let's go ahead, and we're going to jump into the search module to start off with. And like I said, this should look pretty familiar. You got your search bar here, you plug in the address, you plug in a county, a city, a zip code, whatever it might be, and the system will pull up whatever property records we have available for that. The only little nuance or trick up here at the top is you have these 3 different options as far as what type of properties you want to look at. So if we wanted to pull up everything that's in the system, things that are for sale, things that are just public record data, you would leave this to all properties. However, if you just want to look for things that are listed for sale or lease, you would set it to for sale. And then the same thing here for leases, or again, for sale or for lease options will come up this way. And the only other thing to keep in mind, if you click on this advanced tab, depending on which one of those you select, you're going to have a couple of slightly different options down here. So obviously you wouldn't have lease price under the for sale stuff or anything like that. All property, one of the coolest things about the all property search is you can do a sold date, and I'll actually utilize this in the next example. So you can, start to use this for maybe some looking for comps, or also looking for, properties that sold outside of the MLS, do some farming on properties that might be at the end of their hold periods, that kind of cool stuff. There's keyword search, so you can search some of our public record databases, as well as the agent remarks. APN and tax ID, if there's not a address for a parcel of land, a lot of times we'll be able to pull that up via APN or tax. And then you can also search by owners or tenants here as well. So for this example, we're just going to do a very broad search, and we will go into San Antonio, Texas. And maybe what we're looking for is, sort of an investment opportunity. So this is where I wanted to pull up another one of what I think is an incredible benefit that you all have. So within y'all's membership, as I am told, you guys get access to REIS, which is incredible. They provide a lot of data, a lot of information about specific markets, and even some sub-markets on various property types. So if you haven't already looked at these reports, they will provide you with office sector. We're going to look at the multifamily sector example here in a bit as well. But you can narrow it down by metro, and then within these reports, you can see how the geographies are laid out. And, for the office sector, you're going to have different performances, different absorption rates, different rental rates based on location. So they actually break it down very precisely. And you can kind of see there's a lot of details here. So for our example, this might be helpful if we're looking for an investment and we were trying to maybe focus in on the office sector. We can read through some of the basic overview, the compensation, what the outlook that REIS believes is kind of fortuitous for them. And then you can actually come down here. What I like to do, let me go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Because we're going to talk about some of this stuff with the multifamily thing. But what I thought was really neat when I was examining this, so starting off here on the trend futures, you can kind of understand which sector of San Antonio, or whatever major market you're looking at, which sector is going to be the highest performing. So if we're looking for an investment in the office marketplace, we might want to try to focus in on some of these areas that seem to be of a better performing outlook.
Nate, I'm going to hop in here because I have a couple of questions. One of them was, how did he get to that, which is about the REIS reports. Fear not, my friends. I will, before we sign off today, show you how to access those REIS reports right through the Texas Realtors website. Someone also says that they didn't see the tax search option on my screen. So we can get back to that when you're done talking about how to use the REIS reports, but we will answer those questions. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Well, it's kind of magical that I pulled this up, but yeah, so this little chart right here makes a lot of sense to me. So if we're trying to understand these submarkets within San Antonio, to see what areas we should try to focus our efforts on just based on inventory, asking rents, vacancy rates, and that kind of thing. This, to me, is a really great starting point. And what's cool about RPR is, you can actually bring in some of these report elements into the system. So, if I wanted to, for instance, grab this chart and then add it to a property detail, I can take a snapshot of it and do it that way. Or what's even probably more powerful is if you combine some of the REIS reports to the property reports or the trade area reports and kind of put those two together. And I'll show you how to do that as well. But, these REIS reports, if you haven't already taken a look at them, I mean, they get really detailed. You can see new completions, what's under construction. All this is going to be important to you if you're trying to look at, a 8-year hold period for an office complex and trying to figure out, are the rents going to be there in year 7 if we have a whole bunch of square footage under construction here in that specific metro. So I don't want to dive into this too deeply. If you're kind of a research nerd like myself, you're going to love digging into these reports. It's super insightful, and it's a great resource for y'all to kind of get your arms around and start to digest and understand and begin to incorporate for your clients as well. So I wanted to just kind of pull that up for you, just to kind of give you some ideas on what you might be able to look for. So from that standpoint, what we can do now within RPR itself, and let me go back because I believe somebody said they didn't see the APN search. So let me go back to the search elements here. So if you have it set to all properties, and then if you go to this advanced search option, that's when you'll have this APN or tax ID populate. Okay. So let's go back into this search. And again, this is all properties, things that are for sale, things that are off market. So within San Antonio, there's almost just over 42,000 properties. Now, what I like to do is start off broad and then kind of whittle my way down to what I'm actually looking for. So, at this point in time, we can start to narrow things down. So over here on the left-hand side, you can narrow down by property type, owner or tenant names, tax IDs, keywords, building square footage, number of units, and so forth. The one thing that I would point out about any of this data, this is dependent upon the listing agent or the tax collectors, assessors, having put that information into the database to begin with. So if you're worried that, a listing agent didn't put in the correct building size or number of units potentially, or the tax information doesn't have that in there, you might want to kind of keep it broad and then narrow down from those standpoints afterwards if you're not able to find what you're looking for. All right. The other thing that I will point out, since a lot of y'all probably do have MLS access, a lot of times this commercial field is kind of the safety net for listing or for the MLSs themselves. So I always recommend keeping that checked, at least to kind of start off with, and then you can kind of take that out if there's too many, multifamily properties or something like that popping up. But a lot of times this is where you'll find things that people didn't know what to call it, so maybe a mixed use property or something like that. They just called it commercial, and those, may be applicable to what you're looking for. So instead of just eliminating right off the bat, I like to include it just to make sure that I'm looking at all the potential properties that are available. And then for this example, I'm going to go ahead and narrow this down by square footage. So we're going to plug in 5,000 to 6,000. Click the apply button, and now you can see we've whittled this down to 1,162 properties. We have an off-market property right here. We have some recently sold properties. We have some for sale properties, and you can kind of see how this works. So anything that's come through a CIE or an MLS, we'll put that down here. If it came through public records, you'll also see that there as well. And then what we're able to do is, just like any other property search, you can read a little bit about each of these. We can expand the number of results on a page. We can sort these various ways. But basically what we're doing is trying to read this basic detail and then trying to understand if there's a property that matches what we're kind of looking for. So if you go back to the Reese report, and one of the areas, you could pull up this map and kind of see if there's a property within that northwest sector that looked like it was a good match for us. We can click on that little guy and say more details and jump into the property details from the map or from that listing results page. Okay. The other thing that I want to show you on the listing results page is, let me go ahead and minimize this map. Up here at the top, we actually got this request quite a bit, and this is something that's somewhat new, so I don't think I even had this in the presentation last time, but if you click on print this page, this will print up all of the results for whatever search you plugged in there. So if you want to include, everything that's available for your client and just have this little snapshot, you're able to do that now, which I think is pretty cool. All right, so let's jump back into this property, which was kind of in that hot little area according to Reese. It's also available, which is nice. And what we can do now is just kind of understand how the property detail page comes to be within RPR. So what we do is we combine all the listing details with our public record details. And then there's, a couple other data sources that come in there, such as our tenant information. But there's always going to be ample opportunities for you as the most knowledgeable person on these properties to add details as well. So up here at the top, you can see here's the photos. There's only one in there. We also have a street view here, so you can actually utilize this walking down the street if you so choose to. You can also pull up an overhead view as well, try to understand how close or nearby it is to intersections or maybe interstates, highways, college campuses, large development projects, etc. What's cool about this also is if you scroll down a little bit, there's also these abilities to add notes and upload photos. So if you have the mobile device and you have our app installed on it, when you're doing like a property tour, you can actually pull up the property on the mobile site, click on the notes function there, and you can actually add notes as you're walking through a property, which I think is really cool. So instead of, jotting things down on a piece of paper afterwards, each site tour, or even waiting until you get back to your office, you could literally hand your iPad to your client and say, all right, here's the property details. As we're walking through it, just go ahead and type in what you like, what you don't like. What's cool about that is that will automatically populate onto the listing page here. And it will allow you to decide whether you want to include that in your reports or not. Anything that you add to the system, nobody else gets to see. So, keep that in mind. Everything's just for you, just for your clients if you choose to print it out. Same thing with pictures. You can walk around. There's only one picture here. So, maybe we go through here and we take a bunch of pictures of the interior. While we're doing that site tour, we can actually upload those directly as well to the system. And you can always just add notes here. Great location. Lots of financial offices nearby, whatever it may be that you want to add there. Click add. You can see up here, including my reports, check or uncheck. And then you can also upload photos. So you can either take those directly, or, we can come down here. Let's look at the desktop. That little screenshot that I snagged earlier from Reese, I can pull that up, and now that's going to be included in here as well. So it's a pretty cool way to just add more details to these listings. If this isn't a good number one picture that you want on the cover, you can actually take a better picture and use that as your report cover also. Okay. So a couple ways to just add your own details there. And again, this will stick on the property in perpetuity as long as you're a realtor member. Here's our owner name from Public Facts. Here is the mailing address. And then we have this tenant data, which you can kind of see here. We do allow you to edit this information. So if something's correct or incorrect, you can definitely change it around this way. You can also add new tenants here as well. So if somebody's moved in since we collected this data, which I believe this data source is a quarterly update for us. So there's definitely, months in there when things can shift around a little bit. So we want to make sure that you're able to reflect that correctly. And then next up down here, we have public facts, we have listing facts, and then we have your changes. So, a lot of times you'll be able to add more details here just because you know what's going on here, number of buildings, number of units, maybe there's 10 of them, number of stories too. And it also gives you an opportunity to, clarify discrepancies. So this one doesn't have one between the building area, but a lot of times you'll see public facts listed at 5,200, and then the listing facts listed at 5,400. You can come in here and say which is actually correct and leave it that way. Another thing you can do is actually add new information. So if we wanted to do something like parking, plug in number of parking spaces and type in however many parking spaces are there. You can add your own type of details here as well. So signage isn't on the drop down here, but if you click on add, you're able to put that in there as well. Post, or let's do awning out front. You can type in whatever you would like, hit the save button, and now all these details will be here for you to include in your report and also kind of look back on a year from now. So continuing down, just more details. You can see if it's coming from the listing site or the public records site, location information, general descriptions, financial information, legal descriptions, zoning details, tax information, deed records, etc. So lots of information right off the bat here. And again, lots of opportunities for you to add your own details about these properties. Next up, since we are kind of looking at this from an investment standpoint, what we can do is actually jump into this property analysis for investor tool. And that's going to give you a little link. Again, if you need some training on this after today, we do have each of these kind of segmented out so you can understand what you can do with the tool. And then there's a training video series associated with each one of them. So we'll just continue on though, and I'm just going to kind of show you a really, really high level look at this thing. I'm not going to dive into it too deeply, but you can see here, property type, are we flipping it? Are we doing a long-term hold? I always just leave this to quick load. I don't think I've ever actually done detail load. But then we can come through here and you can say what the scenario is. So what's neat about this is you can actually, run this under multiple different versions. So if this is our base case, we can type in base, and then we could run, a secondary investment analysis. Maybe we're going to do a lot of renovations, or we want to look at, a high sales cap rate or something like that for a worst case scenario or something. So you can run this under various scenario conditions. Basically, what you got to do, clarify the square footage, clarify the purchase price. You're going to have to come to the table with the revenues and expenses. So let's say that, gross revenues, we're going to call it, I don't know, let's do 90,000. And then what we're going to do here, since we have some operating expenses, we'll call it 25,000. And these are both going to be those reoccurring expenses. So revenues, rents, that kind of fun stuff. If there's vending machines that you offer, you can, average that out on a monthly basis or an annual basis. You can definitely use that as well. Operating expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance, landscaping, things like that. So just keep that in mind. And if you do ever have any questions about what the system's looking for, there's going to be all these little eyes that will give you some idea as to what should be inputted. This annual growth rate, this is pretty much your inflation factor. So if you think inflation is going to be 2.5% over the hold period of this platform, you can plug that in. Next up, we'll come down here, fiscal year, holding period. Here's where we plug in our loan information. So let's say we're going to do a 50% loan, and let's say we're sitting at 5.25% for our interest rate. And we'll just use this as one investor. You hit the submit button. And basically what the system is based off of is Excel spreadsheets, or at least the formulas and concepts behind using Excel. It's just all of that runs in the background. So all you have to do is plug in, these entry data points, and the system will react off of those. So, let's say that, this is kind of a riskier area and our client's not willing to touch this unless it's an 8% cap rate. Plug in 8%, and it's going to go ahead and automatically adjust the purchase price for you. And then on this side, it's going to adjust your sales cap rate, your sales valuation, and your property growth valuation as well. And you can kind of see same thing happens here. So if we think there's going to be a 5% property value growth, that's going to adjust your sales valuation and your sales cap rate also. And then up here at the very top, as you're making changes, you'll see unlevered and levered. So this is your returns over that hold period. So as you're making these changes, the system's going to automatically update and change with those. And you can kind of see how that works. So let me back this back down. Let's say there's no property valuation growth. The internal rates of return are going to jump down just a little bit that way. All right. So then basically what you're going to look at is just walking through this system. So the next most important part of this is looking at the cash flow screen. So you can adjust your EGRs and your OPEX at this point, or you can come down here and you can see there's a couple of inputs for things like capital reserves, renovations, TIs, LCs, other costs, leasing, and capital costs. And you can pretty much for every month of this hold period, you can enter those details. So, if in year 5 out of the 7-year hold period, I know that I'm going to have to replace the roof, I can squirrel away, $5,000, on month 12, month 24, month 36, et cetera, until I've had, enough money in there to replace that roof. And I can factor that into the analysis because that is definitely going to impact, the financial returns. Next up, go to the purchase and sales screen. And you can see you can plug in all those one-time hits, transfer taxes, selling costs, source of funds screen here as well, amortization periods, fees, and then your breakdown of your multiple investors. The best way to share this, in my opinion, come to share, click on share file, and this is going to generate a link for you, which you can then, pop into your email server, email it out, and you can actually, attach any PDFs that you want, either that REIS report, maybe the REIS report and the property report out of RPR. And what this does is it creates a complete duplication of what we just did, and it allows your client to come in here and fiddle with things. So if they think that the, replacing of that roof is going to cost $10,000 every year, up to year 7, then they can factor that in and you can get back together and say, all right, here's what I came up with. Here's what you came up with. We're probably somewhere in the middle. Do we want to kind of go forward with this or not? Then you can also come here and you can export this into a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet if you so choose. I'll just do the PDF real quick. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a bit. But yeah, that's just a really quick overview of the investment analysis. Again, just want to make sure that you're aware that it's there for you, kind of give you an idea on how all of this works. And then, give you the opportunity, if you want to, you can go to the website and watch some of those training videos and kind of dive into it deeper. All right. So let's say that this looks like a glorious little project for us. We want to come over here, click on Create a Report, Commercial Property Report. What's neat about this is if you come over here to the far right, Manage Custom Pages, this is where you can actually add any unlocked PDF. So, we could add that Reese report if we wanted to. We could also come up in here and add that investment analysis that I just exported. Choose where you want it to go, hit the Save button, and then click on Run Report. And it's going to start generating that report. Usually it only takes a little bit of time here. So while that's generating, I want to go back into the property detail page because I want to get a little bit more information. So right now we know about this property pretty well, but we need to understand the community also. We want to understand where the employee base is going to be coming from, and how we might attract potential employees if we're going to be an owner-occupier possibly. But what we can do is use any one of these drawing tools up here. Typically I use the drive time or the distance tool. But what we're going to do is drop a drive time pin here. And you can see here you have a couple of options. Maybe I think that the employee base is within a 10-minute drive because typically people are commuting within 10 minutes to their office in my neck of the woods. Then I can come down here on this purple blob that Google Maps creates based on drive time. We can click on Create a Trade Area Report, click on OK, and it's going to drop us into the Commercial Trade Area Report. Now, this is that custom page that I added here. This is the investment analysis. I really don't need that right there, so I'll leave everything else checked, and then we can run this report as well. And while that's running, I'll walk you through the property report here. So here is our property. Basically, it's everything that we just looked at on the RPR website. It's just in a nice streamlined manner. So you have your front image there. You'll have a much better picture and built out detail profile there than myself. But then you jump into the details here. You got your property facts, public listing, and then here's those refinements that I added to the system. And then it's basically everything we just looked at. So you got a couple of more overheads. Here's all the tenant data that we had available. Here are the extended property facts, location details, etc. Listing details, public fact, owner information, legal descriptions, assessed values, deed records. Again, a couple more overheads for you to kind of see where it's placed. Here's the picture that I added. Here is the little note that I added. And then, of course, we wrap it all up with some traffic counts. And lastly, this is that investment analysis that I attached at the very end. So this is the overall summary. And then, of course, you have your annual cash flow statement, which I zoom in a little bit. And that's the one downside to these PDF exports is that, if you're doing a 10-year hold, this data kind of squishes together. So it can be a little bit difficult to read, but depending on who you're giving a report to, I guess keep that in mind. But ultimately, you can see what the factors come out to on an unlevered basis, and then they'll plug in all your debt, and then they'll come down here to the levered basis, so you can see what your returns are going to be on that project. All right, so that is the property detail report, and very timely. Now we can pull up the trade area report. And so what our trade area report does, if you choose a 3, 5, or 10-minute drive time, or a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius, you will get this kind of a comparison. So it will compare each one of those together. Whatever you choose to as your main, for this instance, I did a 10-minute drive time as the main area that I wanted to analyze. That will be your key factor, and then it will kind of benchmark against these other two when it's applicable. So there's the 10-minute radius, there's the 5, there's the 3. And then down here we have all this Esri consumer information. And again, what Esri has done, they've created these tapestry segments that allow you to understand the preferences of the people and understand some of the more anecdotal information that goes beyond population density and that kind of thing. So you can see details like residence type, are they single, are they married, are they single with kids, married with kids, what their diversity index is, home value and home ownership percentages, monthly rent for these sectors, preferred activities, buy frozen convenience food, support environmental organizations. Basically, all of this information is kind of that secondary data that helps you make sure that the business or the renter base or the employee base that you're trying to get into matches what your client needs to be around, so that's a good fit and will be a successful opportunity for them. And then down here it gets into a lot more detail, so you can see who these people really are, what they like to do, and kind of understand from a socioeconomic profile, neighborhood profile, and a market profile in general. We, of course, try to show you exactly where this information comes from and how often we get it updated. So all this is coming from Esri. We get one update a year. We just got the most recent Esri file, so that should start getting worked into the platform over the holidays, and hopefully early 2019, you'll be able to see that detail populate here. So right now you can see the 2017 details. We also have U.S. Census projections, so that's the 2022. But you can see how it works. So it's comparing the 3-minute, the 5-minute, and the 10-minute drive time for total pop density, population change. We also have daytime figures here if you're looking at a retail opportunity. We have commuting time. We have population age by sector. So if there's a certain age group that you're looking to be around, you can really quickly identify that. Married, unmarried. Here's our household income levels, per capita, disposable. Here's our unemployment rates, which might be a key factor for our situation. Here's the employment count by industry, which again would be important for us if we're looking at this from an office perspective. Apparently there's a lot of healthcare, so if this is built to be utilized by doctors and that kind of thing, that might be an important key factor for us. Next up, we can come down here and we can look at education levels. Again, an employee-based factor here. If we're looking for highly educated folks, we can target in on those types of criteria. Commute times, again, I looked at that 10-minute commute time because I thought that was a key factor there, but it looks like there's some folks traveling from a more even further away distance, so you could run a secondary trade area report just for that 20 to 25-minute area if you wanted to. Here's the home details. And then, of course, we wrap this up. So this is the best retail business. So this is that retail gap analysis for that 10-minute drive time area. And again, what this is looking at is the retail opportunity specifically in this marketplace. So it looks at population numbers, and it looks at the number of competitors in that area. So if I was looking to put a bar somewhere, this is saying, all right, at this point in time, based on the formula that Esri has created, there aren't enough bars to support the number of people that live here. So people are actually leaving this 10-minute drive time area and going outside there to go to find a bar or watch a football game or whatever they might be doing at bars. I don't know. And then you can come down here and you can also look at what there's considered to be too much of. And by no means does this mean that if a grocery store comes into this marketplace that it's not going to be successful. Of course, there are opportunities outside of your typical grocery to kind of find your niche. Maybe there's no organic grocery stores or there's no discount grocery stores in this marketplace. So this is just to kind of get your ideas rolling, not so much the end-all, be-all. Okay? And then, of course, we wrap that up with just some traffic counts for you as well. So that is how you would go through RPR to discover property details along with all of the profile information for the community. Next up, we don't have a ton of time, but I want to show you all that site selection tool. So if we come here.
I do have a quick question here. Someone says, I entered a search for multifamily in Houston, Texas, and the search is showing no results. Really? Bernard skeptically, and so must I.
Yeah. Most likely what you did was, let me just go back here to the search page. So Houston right now, the Houston CIE is not sending us on-market listings. So the listings that we're getting from the Houston area is through the MLS participation, which I'm going to guess is pretty low. So just make sure if you're looking for Houston property information, you have this set to all properties, and that will populate pretty much whatever you'd like there.
All right, thanks.
Yep. All right, so let me go back to the analysis section here. For this one, let's go into the Austin area, and let's say that we're actually doing a little farming this time. So instead of us, I guess, kind of having a listing or looking for a property to buy, we want to possibly find a building owner who might want to list with us. So what I thought we would do is we'll use that multifamily example really quickly. Now let's say that we're trying to find areas that have potential long-term renters, and you can define long-term renter however you want. My definition of that is younger adults who have student loan debt thought process is, if they're younger, they probably don't have much savings. If they have student loan debt, it's harder to save up for that, 20% down for that house. Also, we want to understand possibly what they are already spending on renting. And then, the other factor for me was projected household growth. So this tool, it's one of those ones that you just want to kind of play around with. So you have tons of different attributes down here you can select from. For our scenario here, we're going to start off with who they are. We'll come down here and you can see, again, tons of different things you can choose. We're looking at young adults. So we'll come down here and again, lots of different categories. I always try to roll them up. So as long as I'm okay with people between the ages of 20 and 39, I can do that. Or, if I wanted only 20s, I could select that one there. Click OK. Next up, I want to look at that student loan debt. I think that's probably a key factor for me. So I can come down here and you have a lot of different financial categories. For the student loan debt, you'll find that under personal finance and other debt. And then you can come down here and you can look at general student loan debt from a year ago, or that kind of thing. So we'll plug in the typical student loan debt. And then next up, I want to look at what they are purchasing. So I want to understand, their spending habits on housing. So we can come down here to housing. And now we have spending on rented housing.
Hey, Nathan,
Yeah.
Someone pops in. I didn't notice this. Austin is in Travis County. Austin County is a different Texas.
The city of Austin. How about
It's
that?
a state.
I meant to type in Austin. Sometimes the autofill on here gets ahead of me.
Yeah.
Good eyes. Good eyes. That would have been embarrassing. All right. So the last factor here is spend or select an attribute. So we want to understand projected household growth rate. So down here you have facts and stats. You can see things like population stats, housing stats, population trends, and income trends. So for this one, we're going to do population trends. And we are going to look at the 2017 to 22 projected household growth rate. And again, if you're curious where any of this information comes from, you can see this is coming from the U.S. Census American Community Survey. Click OK. Now you can see I can do up to 5 different attributes, but for this scenario, I'm just going to leave it at these 4. And we can click on Run Analysis. And again, basically what this tool is trying to do for us is just, instead of me looking through the entire Austin area, it's going to highlight for me where these people live and help me focus and save some time on my actual property search or property location details. Sometimes this takes a little bit of time to crunch all that data. But here you go. So here is, the city of Austin. You can then come down here. Here are the different attributes. Up here, you can see the darker the purple, the better the fit. And then we have a couple of different geography options. I will say, me personally, I always like making sure that I'm looking at the entire area. So all of these different neighborhood choices that I have options, not every part of the city of Austin has a geographical boundary created by the municipality of a neighborhood. So what I like to do is start off with the zip code level, and that will ensure that this entire geography is covered for me. And then you can also see it does give you a little bit of different perception on some of the clustering effects of where these folks are living. And at this point in time, I have a couple options. I can either click on each one of these areas and do a listing or an all property search at this stage of the game, or I can come down here and I can select multiple areas at one time and do a property search here as well. If I am going to use this as part of my research tool, I might want to come up here and create a quick report for this to kind of show my client why I wanted to be in specific areas. So same process we've done before. Click on create a report, and as that's generating, I'm going to go ahead and go back into the analysis, and I'll show you how to start to do the searches. So we can come in here, select all those areas that are a good fit for us. And you can also sort these. So if there is a specific one of these that is more important than the other, you can select student loan debt, and then you can select the top ones that way if you wanted to, for instance. But for me, having all of these together is kind of the key factor here. Then at this point in time, you can either do just things that are for sale. But for our scenario, since we're looking for properties that maybe the owners are looking to kind of unload or sell at this time, we're able to do an all property search just like we did before. And then again, we're going to filter this down. So this time, I'm just going to filter this by multifamily. And then the other key factor is the sold date. So right here, I'm going to switch this over to date range. And what we can do is we can jump back in time. So what I'm trying to do is I want to find properties that are at the tail end of their hold period. So I'm going to do January 1st, 2009, and then we'll come over here and we'll do this out to December 31st, 2010. So that's my date range. And after I've kind of set that up, what I can do is click the apply button. And now you can see here we have all these multifamily properties that sold from 2009 to 2010 and haven't sold since then. And we're able to, at this point in time, just kind of look through these. Maybe you know some of the areas, you know the owners possibly, and you can kind of do a search result that way. Again, keep in mind, you can always print this page off if you want to kind of run through them all and just cross them off on a nice little list. You're able to do that as well. But basically what you're going to do is kind of like what we did earlier, jump into 3806 property. You have a lot of details here on the property here because it was listed once before, it seems like, through the MLS or the CIA. So you do still see the old listing details. There's historical photos here as well, so you can actually jump back in time to 2007 and see if there's been any updates, any changes. You can also compare historical records. So since this is a property-centric database, we hold on to this information for as long as possible and allow you to then kind of go back in time and compare things. And hopefully this will kind of give you some insight that either isn't in public records or that the current listing agent didn't include. Now, what I would like to probably do at this point in time, since I've kind of found this property, you can then pull up, let me go ahead and do that, pull up the Austin multifamily market. And since what I'm trying to do is, convince somebody to list with me, it's going to be very impactful if I'm able to tell them why I think right now is a good time to put this on the market. So going through, looking at the current metro trends, look at the rent growth, looking at, forecasts, all that kind of great stuff is going to be pretty important to help me convince, this owner that this is a great time, before cap rates get up too high or, interest rates keep on climbing and pushing those caps. This is a good opportunity for us. And you can even get into the general economic outlooks here. Another section that I really like here, I believe it started at page 14. And everybody, y'all are going to have different things that jump out to you that seem to be more applicable than what I look at. So just keep that in mind. Each of these reports, that's what's great about it. You can kind of pick and choose what you like, what you want to include, what you don't. So for me, pages 14 through, I think it's like 20 or something like that, just looks at the current metro rental details. So you can kind of see here the asking rents, rental growth distributions. You have here asking rent growth, so you can kind of see whether or not this has been slowing down, and maybe that is an indicator in your mind and possibly the seller's mind that it's time to kind of unload this property because maybe cash flows are going to kind of become a little bit more stagnant. Vacancy rate trends, so you can see another indicator as these are kind of climbing up. That's never a good sign, I guess. But just kind of looking through here, trying to pick out what looks like a good reason to sell and kind of factoring all that together and putting that together in your report is going to be a pretty great way to help your clients out and help them understand why this opportunity is what it is. So from there, you can do a lot of what we did earlier. So you can add notes, you can add, all these different details and changes here as you kind of see fit. You can run your trade area report analysis around these properties just like we did. But I also want to show you really quickly. So let's say that this is a property I'm going to go to, either the owner's office or their house and kind of talk to them about this opportunity to sell. You can either pull up the website here and kind of walk them through some of the details. You can understand their property, obviously, from a historical point of view and talk about what you already know about it, give them confidence in you that way. And then you can come to the table with the property report, the trade area report, and also maybe even add some custom pages. So what I did was, let me go ahead and delete this one. We come back in here and we can add, so I pulled out that specific 14 through 20 page section. And let's say I want to put that at the beginning and hit the save button. And now when I run that report, it's going to start off with the explanation of, here's the current multifamily conditions in Austin. Here's your description of your property. Here's, then at that point you can kind of walk them through, evaluate, and the investment analysis once you get those details from them. You can really put together a good, reasonable approach as to why they might want to list the property with you, considering they may be at the end of that hold period, that 2 to 10 year hold period, whatever it might be. So let's go ahead, and while that's running, I'm going to show you this little section here, which kind of brought us into where we might want to look for some of those long-term rental opportunities, which might be a good marketing kind of point. If they're trying to list with you, you can utilize this information saying, hey, this is a good market for a potential buyer because there's a lot of folks with student loan debt. There's a lot of folks that are young. So as Reese might be saying, the rental growth might be slowing, but we don't think it's going to stagnate or retreat based on some of these key factors in being in the area that's going to have a lot of long-term rentals. So this is what this is going to look like. And this is also a great report, outside of trying to get a listing. If you're trying to just tell back up what you already know about a marketplace and try to tell a client where they should be looking for properties. This is some third-party data that will kind of highlight probably what you already know. Y'all probably understand where a lot of young people live and where there's high rents and that kind of thing, but your clients might not. So this is a great way to kind of back up your own data, your own analysis, and kind of show them what's going on in those marketplaces. So then down here, of course, you're looking at data. We want to make sure you understand where this is coming from, so you can see exactly what the data sources are and how often we update them. And that little doorbell means that our other report is ready. So now we have the property shot here, and then we can come in here and we can see there's that Reese information. So I did I cheated a little bit. I wanted to save a little bit of time. I went ahead and just printed out pages 14 through 21 into a PDF. So that's kind of what we're going to lead off that conversation with, looking at what the future might hold and why this might be a good opportunity to kind of list with me. All right. So that's just kind of a really quick way to utilize the system in a couple different avenues, from just doing your typical property search to doing site selection to understanding the communities. And what I really like and appreciate with what Texas has provided y'all, that Reese data, I mean, that's over-the-top information that your clients are going to be wild with. So understanding how to utilize that information, their research, and then apply some of that methodology or that reasoning behind what you're doing within RPR, and even combining the reports like we've done a couple of times here, I think that's going to really set y'all apart. And it is a very, very powerful benefit. I'm glad that you all have access to both Reese and, of course, RPR Commercial. So with that, that's about all the time I have, I guess, for you today. So if there are any other questions at this point in time, I'd be more than happy to kind of hang out for a little bit and do some Q&A. For those of you that do have to kind of move on and go make some money out there, thank you for giving me a little bit of your time today. Hopefully you saw a couple of things in here that are going to interest you and you might be able to utilize kind of in your day-to-day practices. And then, of course, feel free to reach out to me, nathang@narrpr.com. And keep in mind, we do have that customer support for you here as well. All right.
Great, Nathan, thank you so much. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to take control of the screen, okay, and I'm going to show everybody how to find those market reports on the Texas Realtors website. So you will, of course, need to be signed in. So you want to go to TexasRealestate.com. And you want to be in the section for Realtor members. We have both a public-facing and a member section of our website. So then you want to go to Specialties and click on Commercial. And it will take you to our commercial landing page, which if you've never checked it out, I invite you to. That wasn't the right thing. We've got a bunch of information on here. But one of the first things you can find here is the Texas Commercial Market Report. So you just want to go here just to point out, if you want to watch a video that we recorded about a year ago with some folks from the Reese organization on how to use the reports, you can do that. Or you can just click here. Now, it's going to show you some more information. Here's another link to the video. This is a list of the market areas. This is a list of our sectors, and you can go in and access it. It's going to pull up a very scary looking end user license agreement, what we call a EULA. The short version of this is that by using these, you agree to the terms and conditions that these are not going to leave your hands and go walking around out in the world. We have an exclusive agreement with Reese that was negotiated by our staff here to let you use these reports This is the only association in the country that I know of so far who's doing this. So you're going to want to say yes. So now you pick your year. We get reports quarterly, and the third quarter reports just came out. You can select your sector. So we'll go with apartment, multifamily, like we showed. Now, a caveat. We have more than 20 market areas in Texas. Of course, some of our market areas have more detail than others. So if we select El Paso and hit submit, and it's going to ask you to understand again. It needs you to be very understanding. It will, where are we? I lost it. So we get, and then we download this, and it's going to open up in a PDF. And boom, there you've got that PDF. So naturally, our El Paso market report is going to be much thinner, unfortunately, than sorry, my type pad's not working well, than a report from Austin or Houston or San Antonio. And I do apologize about that, guys, but we can only give you the information they have. So what I'm really excited about is that we do have some new CIEs coming online this year. We've got a new CIE in Tyler and Lubbock and El Paso. So I know that as our members start adding more properties to those CIEs, I've let the folks at Reese know that we have these new CIEs. So I know that they're going to start looking into seeing if they can get some information from those. So hopefully we'll be able to bring more information on the market areas that aren't as detailed now. So that's how you find those. They're right here on your Texas Real Estate homepage. Again, specialties commercial, and then you click on those. They're all there. They're all available to you for absolutely no cost. If you buy these individually on the open market, they usually go for about $300 a piece. They are chock full of information, and we think that they're pretty useful to you, especially in combination with all of the great information that you get from RPR. So with that, I'm going to see if we do have a couple questions. Someone says, thank you. Do we have a list of current Texas CIEs? Well, it's funny you should ask that, Christopher. Let's go back to our commercial landing page. And if you see right here, it says looking for commercial property in Texas. I have got links here to the CIEs in our various market areas that are up and going so far. So we've got Greater Tyler, we've got Border CIE in El Paso, we've got WTCIE, which is West Texas and Lubbock, Commercial Gateway, of course, I think everybody knows it, HAR. NT CAR, which is our overlay board in Dallas, our commercial overlay board in the Dallas area, is using a different system, but they are still reachable through us. ST CAR sponsors a CIE. Central Texas is also sponsoring one. They are also using a different system. Most of them are on Catalyst, which means if information is entered into the Catalyst system from any local CIE, it is available on all of them. So with that, I'm going to go back and see if we have, any more questions. Oh, I can't find the correct. Here we go. Where'd my thing? Here we go. There's my lost. Okay, so we answered that. All right, so I just want to see if anybody else has any questions for me or for Nathan. And it doesn't look like anybody is. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Nathan, I'm going to unmute you. Thank you so much for presenting today. We really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know we're getting close to the holidays, so that makes it harder to find time. If you have any more questions about this, again, you can get Nathan at his was NathanG@narrpr.com.
Yep, .com.
Okay, .com. I always get the .coms and the .orgs confused. And you can get me at TexasRealtors.com. Sorry. I think that's about it. I'll check for questions one more time before we go. Doesn't look like we have any. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I hope we see everybody in February at our winter meeting. Stay tuned. We'll have more information coming out on events there. And that's it for the day. Oh, wait, I do have a raised hand. Marilyn, you'll need to type in your question in the Q&A box because I can't. All right, just shoot me an email, Marilyn. I'll be happy to answer it if I can. All right, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Nathan. All right. End meeting.